So, you're new to Rover, either as a dog caretaker or as a dog parent, and you need someone to explain the ins and outs of the different services that you can provide on Rover. This video is for you. Let's get into it. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to explain what makes each of the different booking types different on Rover, also try to highlight some of the perks and disadvantages for each type. So there's going to be 5 main booking types on Rover. The first booking type I'm going to start with is going to be doggy daycare. This is one that I think is probably used maybe the least often on Rover, and this is essentially preschool for your pup. You will drop your dog off in the morning and you'll pick them up later in the day. The idea being is that there's going to be a dog caretaker watching and taking care of your pet the entire time that you're gone. Now, just like in preschool, your dog will most likely be socializing with other dogs throughout the day. Most of the time, people who run the doggy daycares, they'll have 3, 4, 5 different dogs there each and every day. So this service is really great for those dogs who get along well with other dogs. Like they just want to play, they want to have some fun. Can also be great for those dogs who get a bit anxious when their owners are not home. You don't really have to worry about it because the dog is distracted by the other pups, right? They're having a good time. They're not focused on the fact that they don't quite know where their owner is at this given point in time. Another small perk for the owner is that doggy daycare is an affordable option. When you compare it to something like a drop-in visit, which is another type of service I'm going to touch on a bit later, drop-in visits themselves, if you do 2 of them scheduled during the day, you're getting the same price as doggy daycare, which can be up to 8 hours long. So it's really a great option for those looking for someone to just look after their pup, make sure that everything's going according to plan while they're at work, but really not break the budget either. All right, something that I wouldn't necessarily call a disadvantage of this type of booking, but something that you should be on the lookout for is that you are really going to want to trust the pet caretaker for this type of booking. Now, that could probably be said for every type of booking that I'm going to talk about here today, but just the opportunity for things to go wrong is really magnified when you have a pet for, 8 hours a day, or maybe that person is watching 3, 4 pets within that 8 hour time span. So you're really going to want someone that you can trust as the sitter in this circumstance to make sure that your dog's getting the attention that it needs. You'll hear me mention it a couple times throughout this video, but I highly recommend meet and greets, specifically for this type of booking. Meet and greet is just an opportunity for the pet owner and dog and the pet caretaker to get together, spend some time together for 15 to 30 minutes prior to a booking so that everyone can be on the same page of what to expect. Also, make sure it's the right fit for you and your pet. For those of you who are here for this video to look into start pet sitting, there's a couple great perks that come along with doggy daycare. First and foremost is that if you are doing this because you are a dog person, which should be the reason why you are doing this, you get to spend a lot of time with these pets. So you get to learn the ins and outs, what makes them tick, what makes them have a good time. So you just generally get to spend more time with these pets than maybe some of these other booking types. So that right there is a perk alone. Additionally, you don't have a commute. All the pets, generally speaking, for doggy daycare are dropped off at the pet caretaker's house. So, no daily commute for you, no wear and tear in your car. Everything that you need is right there at home. So, it can be a good service option. Not one that I have taken part in just yet, but it can be a good one if you have the right space for it and you've got the time and the experience to care for these dogs. Now, one negative for pet sitters is that you are location bound, as the pet owners are really expecting you to be at the home watching their pups. So you can't really head out to do these like one-time walks or drop-in visits. You can't really double up on other services because you're supposed to be there. So the income you're going to make on that day will solely be from this doggy daycare business. Moving right along, let's talk about dog walks, which is our second booking type here that we have today. This one's pretty self-explanatory from the name. You can get the general gist of what you're doing, but it involves the dog caretaker going to the dog owner's house and taking the dog out for a walk. Now, these walks can be booked for a couple different lengths of time. You can either book them for a 30-minute walk on Rover or an hour-long walk on Rover. I think if you are going to use the WAG app, I think you can do shorter walks than that, maybe 20 minutes. But they're pretty standard. 30 minutes will go by really quickly on a walk, whereas an hour, you can really hit some, fitness goals for the dog if the owner has those. During these walks, the pet sitter will log pieces of information into the Rover app so that the pet owner can see it. So essentially, the pet sitter can log if the dog has used the restroom, if you've provided any water for the dog while on the walk, especially if it's a hotter day out. And also, the pet owners are usually going to be expecting some pictures while you're out on the walk. I like to usually include at least 3 pictures as the pet sitter. I think that's a pretty good general rule of thumb. Usually, these pictures are just so that the owner knows the dog's safe and having a good time. If it's someone that you're walking pretty regularly, I like to include pictures that are really fun, a little different here and there, because otherwise those pictures can get really repetitive if it's the same dog that you're walking, 2, 3, 4 times a week. So try to make it fun. If it's snowing out, maybe throw a snowball, have them try to catch it in their mouths and get a snapshot of that. Or if you stop for a belly rub, get them while they're on their back, something like that. Just make sure that, you are including those pictures with the booking. One other cool thing about this kind of booking with the walks is that the location is going to be shared between the pet sitter and the pet owner while you have custody of the dog. So this is something that's just a nice little safety net, just so that you know as the pet owner where your dog is at all times. As the pet sitter, it's kind of nice to be able to see the little side streets that you're walking on. So if you do get a little confused with the route or you just want to change it up, you know how to get back. Just a nice thing to have, nice little feature of the app itself. So the perks of this type of walk for the owners, pretty self-explanatory, but this is going to be great for those dogs that have a lot of energy and maybe just you can't get home to take them out midday. So you schedule a walk. This walker is going to make sure that they're nice and tired when they get back from their walk. They've gotten the energy out that they need. They've gotten a chance to use a bathroom break. So it's a really nice option for, that type of busy lifestyle where maybe midday you can't get back because of a job or something. Now, as a dog sitter, this is actually probably my favorite type of booking, mostly because it just combines a few things that I really love. First and foremost, you get to play with dogs. You get to have these happy pups who are, excited to be out and about the town or the neighborhood. But also, you get exercise while you do it. So you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. You get to do these walks and burn off some calories while having fun with the dogs. If the dogs are repeat clients, they usually get super excited to see you because they know who you are. They recognize your car. They recognize what they get to do when you arrive. So it kind of builds that fun little bond between you and the dog. Something I'll put in the neutral category about dog walks is the opportunity to walk multiple dogs at a time. Now, yes, as a dog walker, you can make more money that way by walking multiple dogs at a time. I'm sure you've seen the pictures of videos of people in the city with 6, 7 dogs strapped to their waist. But I find that it could be potentially more trouble than it's worth. Unless the dogs live together and already walk together and know each other, there's just so many questions that kind of exist around that type of walk. For example, if these dogs are coming from separate owners, do they live nearby? Are you going to have to pick up a dog in a car and drive them to another location? Is the owner okay with that? Are you sure the owner's okay in general with you dividing your attention between multiple dogs while on a walk? Do you personally feel that you are able to control 3, 4 dogs if they all pull at the same time? And I think it's just more about knowing your own personal limits. Because, yes, you can have well behaved dogs, and at a baseline, well behaved dogs are very easy to care for. But if they get excited because they want to go chase after a squirrel, or they see another dog that, they really want to get to, and they all pull at the same time, are you going to be able to control that? I personally have a general rule of thumb of 1 large dog, 2 medium-sized dogs, or 3 small dogs. I keep it that way. I know my own limits. You can decide what that is for you, but especially if you are someone who is new to walking dogs, I would really try to limit it to 1 dog or 2 if those dogs are brothers or sisters. Similar to our dog walks, we have our third booking type, which is going to be our drop-in visits. I say they're similar because they share a lot of the same functionality within the Rover app. So you are going to be booked for these drop-in visits for 30 minutes at a time, an hour at a time, just like the walks. You're going to be asked to provide information such as if they've used the restroom, if you've fed them, if you've given them water, and provide pictures, just like the walks. So you might be wondering what's really the difference between a walk and a drop-in visit. And truly it is that when you're going for a drop-in visit, you're going to enter in the house and you're probably going to let the dog outside. They probably need to use the restroom. But other than that, most of what you're going to do is going to occur, in the house or around the house rather than taking them out for a walk themselves. You're going to be in the house, and instead of exercising with them, you'll probably be spending more quality time with them. I find often that these drop-in visits are often kind of last-minute bookings, and it's usually because something has come up in the pet owner's lives and they can't make it home for whatever reason, and they need someone to let their dog out, or they need someone to, check in on them. So these drop-in visits, for that reason, are probably less likely to become these weekly reoccurring visits that you can get with dog walks. Not that they couldn't become reoccurring, but they're more likely to be these one-off opportunities. And yet, if they really enjoyed the way you cared for their dog, or if you were able to help them out, on really short notice, they're probably more likely to book you again if that situation ever shows up again. So you can still get these reoccurring clients through drop-in visits. I just think it's probably a little bit more likely to do that with the dog walks. Now, I have had dog owners utilize these drop-in visits for when they're away. And usually what they'll do is that they'll book 3 hour-long drop-in visits throughout the day. I don't think this is probably efficient for either the dog caretaker or the pet owner. You'll see when we talk about it a little bit later, but there's other ways to book your pet caretakers to watch your dog for extended periods of time. Whereas if you do schedule 3 drop-in visits, it's probably going to cost you more than just doing that other type of booking that I'll talk about. And additionally, it's going to be harder on the caretaker itself because they're going to be commuting back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So, it's an option. I wouldn't always recommend it if you're going to be doing it 3 times a day, but I'll kind of explain why some of my clients do opt for that. So, all in all, drop-in visits are probably down there on the tier list of different types of visits you can do. Like I said, they're usually, last case scenarios. So, as the pet caretaker, you do have to commute there and back. It's a little bit more wear and tear in your car. It's a little bit more time confounding than something like doing doggy daycare at your house. You don't get the exercise from going out on walks. So for me personally, they're okay. I'm still always happy to spend time with pups. And, sometimes it gets the pet owner out of a pickle. So they're down there in the tier list, but they're still absolutely a necessary service that Rover provides. All right, we have 2 service types left from Rover, and I'm going to group them together because they're both forms of how to watch a dog overnight. So this is going to be your house sits, and this is going to be your boarding. Now with boarding, caretakers are going to have the dog stay at their place. So the dog is going to be leaving their home and coming to the caretaker's home. Whereas house sits, kind of as it sounds, the caretaker will be going to the dog's house. So like you might imagine, both of these booking types are usually utilized when the dog owner is out of town. So let's do a deeper dive into the boarding first. And this is something that could potentially be a perk, could potentially be a drawback. Similar to doggy daycare, when someone is boarding, they're likely to be boarding multiple dogs at a time. So once again, if you have a super friendly dog that's going to have a blast playing with other pups, this is going to be a really great option for you. It won't be at the scale of an outright kennel, but they can, make some small best friends there while boarding. And alternatively, if you are a dog that does not do well with other dogs, or you are someone who is, a little nervous about something like kennel cough, maybe this wouldn't be the right option for you. It's highly likely that if someone's boarding, they're doing that with multiple dogs at a time. Now, for dog caretakers, because it does allow for multiple dogs at a time, it does provide an opportunity to make some really solid money. The really cool thing about it is that because you were at your home this entire time, you can combine it with doggy daycare. So you can have pups that come and go during the day, and also a subsection of those dogs who are staying at night. Even if you aren't doing the doggy daycare side of things and you're just boarding 4 dogs a night, you can make about $100 to $200 a day just from boarding alone. So the opportunities are there to make some pretty serious cash, whether it's a side hustle, or even at that point, you could probably turn it into a full-time job. Now, before you dive headfirst into boarding, because we just talked about the money you can make, please consider a couple things first. First and foremost, there are regulations in place in a lot of areas in terms of how many dogs you can board before it's considered a kennel. And if you're considered a kennel, there's a lot more hoops you need to jump through. So I only promote legal types of services here on this channel. So please, please, please look into your laws and regulations for your area before you start boarding, before you even think about starting boarding. Just check into that first. Secondly, do not board pets if you do not have the space that you need to board pets, or you do not have the time to board these pets. I personally do not have a fenced in yard where I live, so I do not have that service active as of right now. Don't get me wrong, I would love to board pets on that place, but I don't think it's the right environment for those dogs to be boarded. I could not move forward doing that with a clear conscience, so please, please be realistic about the space that you have. Do you have enough room for dogs? Do you have a fenced in yard? Do you have a safe space outdoor for these dogs? Because first and foremost, we want to keep these pups safe. Kind of rounding out this topic on safety, if you are new to this or if you are just getting started in dog caretaking, I would recommend postponing any boarding. I think you should start with things like the dog walks or the drop-in visits. And mostly this is because when you're boarding a pet or you are doing doggy daycare, you are watching them for hours and hours at a time, and that just kind of exponentially increases the opportunity for things to go wrong. Now, I want you to start off with having good experiences with dogs. I don't want this to be a scary message for you. I want you to start off with having good experiences. And if you are doing the quicker 30-minute visits or the quicker hour-long visits, I think it provides that space to do that, and it provides you a way to get a little bit of experience before doing boarding. So look into the other opportunities first as a gateway into maybe then being able to start a boarding business. And now finally, let's round it out by talking a little bit more about these house sitting opportunities. This is one that I actually added to my services after 3 or 4 months of doing regular drop-in visits and dog walks. I do kind of find it hard to believe that you would be able to start out with house sits on Rover, and that's mostly because you wouldn't have any reviews yet on your profile, you wouldn't have any badges on your profile, so I think it would be very tough for pet owners to trust someone who's completely new to the website to do a house sit. So that's something that we can talk about in a future video, but more than likely you're probably going to have to start somewhere else and then add house sits on afterward. Now, house sits are nice for the dog owner because the dog itself is staying in its normal, natural environment. So yes, sometimes dogs can struggle a little bit with separation from their owners for long periods of time, but the fact that they're in their own house and you, as the caretaker, can try to mimic their everyday life as much as possible, I think that is very comforting for the pet themselves. And I think that pet owners get that. So I think it is a huge plus for them to be able to say that, their dog is being cared for, but also just cared for in their normal environment. I will say that house sits can probably feel a bit weird for both the dog owner and the pet caretaker at first. Honestly, it feels a bit strange sometimes when you are waking up into an owner's house because you're staying there for a week. Or, if you are the owner themselves and you are trusting that this person is not only caring for your dog, but caring for your house and treating it how it should be. So it can be a little strange, a little nerve-wracking, I would say. But there's things that you can do ahead of time. So something we mentioned earlier are those meet and greets. I think this is another great opportunity to almost require a meet and greet before you do a house sit. So you can get to know the dog can get to know you being in their space. You can get to know the owners. You can also get to know the house, right? So you're not just kind of like going through those little hiccups of being like, why can't I find the light switch, or which one of the automatic garage door openers is the correct one? You can just get a little bit more comfortable. The pet owners can get a little bit more comfortable by speaking to you and knowing that, you are here for the right reasons. So I think a meet and greet is always a really great option, but specifically for a house sit, I think it's almost essential. One perk I'll mention as a pet caretaker is that your house sitting rate is probably going to be the most expensive rate that you put out there. And if you think about it, really, it's for good reason. You're kind of uprooting your life and living somewhere completely different for a period of time. So it makes sense that this would be the most expensive rather than, visiting somewhere for an hour or having a dog come to where you live. So you can make a decent amount of money for every additional pet that is within this house that you're house sitting. There's an additional pet rate. I think it's about half of your initial pet rate. So the owners aren't paying full price for every single pet, which is, totally fine, but you are making a little extra cash if there are a couple pets within the house. Obviously, the downside, it's not boarding. You can't just combine bookings. If you are house sitting, you are there at the house. You can step away for an hour or two at a time, as long as you communicate with the family that, that's how you do house sits, right? Sometimes you do have those really anxious dogs that do not want to be left alone for extended periods of time. My general rule of thumb is that I don't like to leave the dogs alone for more than 2 hours at a time. But most of the time, pet owners understand you need to step away for dinner or you need to step away to do your laundry or something. They don't expect you to be there 24/7. They just expect you to, be providing the care that they would be providing if they were there. All right, so that does it for all of our Rover services here today. We covered all five of them. Let me know what services you utilize through Rover, either as a pet sitter or as a pet owner. Or if you're someone who's just getting started, what are you looking into? What do you think would be the most fun or most rewarding for you to do? With that said, make sure to subscribe and like the channel if you're enjoying this type of content. More videos are to come very soon. And that will pretty much do it for this one, though. So go out there, walk some dogs, have some fun, get some experience, all of that, yada yada. All right. Okay, bye. Ready? Get.